from the Mercy One studio.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and the Uncommon Good provided by Mercy College of Health Sciences. Learn more at mchs.edu.
Welcome, folks, to the Uncommon Good with Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr. Every week, diving deep into the truth of Catholic social teaching and restoring all things in Christ.
The Uncommon Good is on the air. I'm Bo Bonner.
And I'm Dr. Bud Marr.
We are coming to you from the Iowa State Fair 2021 in the beautiful canopy and shadow of the Bill and Riley stage. And that's the national anthem in the background, so we're glad that you're with us. But we'll be quiet for a little bit, and then we can get back to talking like normal.
That's right.
The fair. It's a fair place to be.
Should we talk through the national anthem?
I think we're supposed to. Yeah, Jimmy's given us permission.
No, it's great to be down here at the fair. A lot of energy, a lot of excitement. There's going to be some excitement as I hit the food booths after the show is over.
That's right. Surrounded by food. You can come find us over, like I said, the Bill. I always mess it up. Because I say
West End.
The West End, yeah.
The west side of the
The west side of the right stage. Plenty of food for you to catch. You can come talk to deacons, even priests when they're here at the Iowa Catholic Radio booth. And we want to say thank you to Mercy College of Health Sciences, as always, underwriting the show.
Play ball.
There we go, play ball. And so we'd love to have you stop by and see us. But thank you, Mercy College of Health Sciences, for underwriting the show. Mercy College, I'm the Senior Advisor for Mission and then Director of the Center for Human Flourishing. Bud, what do you do at the old alma mater?
The Academic Dean at the college, and it's exciting to see another summer term wrap up. So grades were due Monday, but we're already gearing up for the fall, which will be upon us quickly.
So yeah, thank you, Mercy College, for underwriting our show. Bud, this is the first Iowa State Fair that you've been to, right, in 4 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's been 4 years. I've actually been once. I'm one of those persons that it takes a lot for me to venture out. But I was back here in I was going to say 2016, but that would have been presidential election time.
Yeah, so that would have been right around when I got here too. So maybe you did. Maybe that was the first. So you come here like every 4 or 5 years and grace it. But no, we're over here. Like I said, we got Iowa. We got Iowa Catholic Radio folks out here.
Yep.
It's under the shade, so if you're walking around getting sun blisters and reflections off of your ice cream glaze on your hands, this is a good place to go. And rest, come by. We just had someone get rosaries right when the show started off. Like I said, deacons and priest here to talk with you, to hear confessions here at the fair.
Yeah, if you're heading out the door today to the fair, grab a couple religious articles, and the deacons are here blessing some of those sacred items. So kind of a cool thing with confessions and whatnot heard right on the fairgrounds.
So we always try to make the show that we're broadcasting from the fair have fair-based themes. I know that we've talked about the spirit of festivity before. We had our good friend Haley Stewart on to talk about that. Today, we want to talk about the idea of the public and what does that have to do with, we talk about the common good or the commonwealth. We often think of the public in terms of public-private divide, but there's a way in which I think the state fair is indicative of what that used to mean in a much more fuller sense, and hopefully we can talk about what that means for society, but also the church as well. So we're getting ready to hit our first break, so we'll make sure to, we'll be wrapping up here, but Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr, this is the Uncommon Good. Make sure to go visit Iowa Catholic Radio on all of our sites, iowacatholicradio.com, all of the social media apps, but when you're here at the Iowa State Fair, please make sure to stop by and see us. This is the Uncommon Good, and we'll be back right after this.
Since 1924, St. Vincent de Paul has been helping those less fortunate work towards self-sufficiency. Last year, St. Vincent de Paul helped over 20,000 individuals with food, clothing, and shelter, while also offering classes in financial literacy, high school completion, career readiness, and prisoner re-entry. svdpdsm.org, 515-282-8327. Shop, donate, volunteer, serve. This message was brought to you by Homemakers Furniture.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Catholic Women Now provided in part by Marr Security, a Catholic-owned family business providing security solutions for homes and businesses since 1953. Marr Security, 515-244-5660, PermarSecurity.com.
Thank you, Ashworth Vision Clinic, for underwriting Dowling Catholic Sports 365 on Iowa Catholic Radio. Ashworth Vision Clinic online at ashworthvision.com. Ashworth Vision Clinic, 515-440-4610.
Are you a Catholic who wants to fall deeper in love with Christ and His Church? Do you want to learn more about how you fit into the greatest love story in the history of the world? Do you want to be strengthened in your understanding of our Church's teachings? Have you ever wondered how the Catechism can be a resource and an enrichment to your faith? If you answer yes to any of these questions, then the Catechetical Institute is for you. Find out more by visiting our website at faithjourneyci.com or call John at 515-237-5006.
Thanks to Blessman International for their support of Iowa Catholic Radio. Every year, Blessman International leads teams of Central Iowans to share the compassionate heart of Christ with orphans and vulnerable children in South Africa. You can learn more and sign up for a trip at blessmaninternational.org.
Back with the Uncommon Good, Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr joining you this Wednesday. Thank you for listening to our show. Bud, we are out here at the 2021 Iowa State Fair. It's wonderful to be out and among the people, among the public, and it's wonderful to be able to broadcast and talk about on air everything, the festivity, the wonderful people, the being together, and being together outdoors. So it's really nice setup to get to do all this.
Yeah, just as a heads up, Deacon Tony in the station was saying we sounded kind of low at the start of the show, and it's like the national anthem was in the background. So I don't know about you both, but for myself, being out here, it's like it's a little harder to get in the zone because there's a lot of activity, but I think it's worth it to be out here, have this presence, and always a fun tradition to like broadcast straight from the fair.
Yeah, you walk around and there's always something to do. You know, your brain is noticing that you could be eating, you could be getting like free trinkets, you could be watching whatever the police are doing with the dog up here on the stage. So we're right here where you can do all sorts of stuff. You can cool off in the shade, watch what's going up on the stage, get some good food, talk to deacons and priests, listen if we have a local show going on. It's a wonderful time, and we hope to see you when you get out here at the fair. So today, Bud, what we're going to talk about is, the fair brings to mind, the idea of what a public is. Like, we talk about the public, we talk about people in general. In modern-day parlance, we usually sort of put public and private as the two antipodes. So, like, public is what's, like, to be consumed or be seen by anyone, and private is what you do, like, in your own home or, like, within your own mind or something like this. But an older sense of the public probably has something a lot closer to do with, like, the common, like the common good, the commonwealth, the commons, like places that people used to have as like grazing fields that they shared together when they raised livestock. And I think today that's what we wanted to explore, since to be in the theme and the mood of being out here in the fair is, what does it mean that there are public spaces? What does it mean for society that we are a public together? And is there any conclusions we can draw about what that means?
Yeah, I think with our show over the years, like one category that we've tried to explode is this sort of the way that our culture thinks about the public-private distinction. And I really like the way you were thinking about that with the commons. I don't want to, sometimes I worry on the show that, like, I'm the resident grump, and just, like, deconstructing everything. But I have thought about this. So, like, today there's so many, like, we've got this common area with so many people gathered. And you were mentioning, like, common grazing fields. Even the ideas of, like, individual, personally owned lawns, like, we sort of take that as the lay of the land, but that's not always been the case. So
lay of the land's a good pun, by the way, when talking about lawns. Yes.
I was in England a couple of years ago, and there were a lot of neighborhoods that had, like you were saying, like the commons. It was like a park or a garden that was shared among several homes. And I think as Catholics, we have to do what we can to sort of push back to that sort of understanding of the public. So when we say the word public, like word association game, I say public, you say, and what comes to mind for folks, I think, at the very least, like we used this term back in the day of the front porch republic, meaning like some of the most important conversations we have take place out on our front porches, and we can't relegate politics, and like I said, important conversations about the common good.
Just like your point, so they're clapping.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Yeah. Just to rants on social media, like we have to rebuild this space where true community can happen.
Yeah, and it starts to be interesting, and I understand, like you said, the resident grump, so maybe I'm the resident ironist. I realize the irony of saying this when there's a fair that you have to pay to get into, right? Or like, yeah, this is cool, we're all together, but like, what's mostly going on? Speaking of common grazing fields, there's all these, businesses where you would pay to go do things, and that's not completely true, right? You have like the displays and all these things like this. There's obviously a lot of layers to what's going on. So to be honest, that it's not sort of a pure instance of what we're getting at. The architecture, as it were, of space shows a deeper philosophy about what we think, and especially in the year after lockdowns and everything like this. I know that it's very complicated to talk about like what should still be happening, like what are the best ways to deal with COVID, and I don't want to get into all of that because it's like a topic we've talked about and it's such a hot topic. But suffice it to say, humans belong together, and Iowa State Fair, at least in some ways, just how it's organized, demonstrates this idea that we have our little platoons that come to the fair, but there's a way in which you become a bigger part of the public when you come to something like the fair.
I think about this even with our parish communities. So, me, Bo, I'm a pretty strong introvert, and a lot of Sundays I'm tempted to go to Mass and receive Holy Communion and then sort of jet. When you dig into the New Testament, obviously worship is at the center of what we do on Sundays at church, but reading St. Paul, the communities knew so much about one another, and Paul was always pressing the believers to have at the forefront of their minds concern for the poorest in their communities, and so like that's been a challenge for me, trying to recover some of that. There's the famous passage from, I think, the first letter of Corinthians where St. Paul says we can receive our Lord unworthily by not discerning the body and blood of Christ, and of course we do that sort of thing if we receive the Eucharist and like we have unconfessed mortal sin. But in that passage, in the context, you also see that for the wealthy to organize that community with a total disregard for the poor, that's also a sacrilege against the body of Christ.
Yeah, and I mean, another temptation, too, is like, so people hear you out, and you're like, you're right, bud, so I'm going to go to Mass, and I'm not just going to, like, worship and jet. But so then the next thing we do is, like, make the church like a social club. Like, well, this is my social club that I go to on Sunday or maybe, like, twice a week, but that's my, again, personal space. And this is one more way we have to push back, because the reason people think that is they think religion is private. And it starts to be interesting that people's first impression about what is religion, and they say a private matter, but through most of history, nothing could be more public than religion. And you think about that, our masses are public instances of worship, because there are private masses, you can pray by yourself, you can do the office by yourself even, but Mass is the public celebration of worship, because the public, the idea of a commonwealth that is shared, is so important. So we get that even with parishes, right? We think of parish as the building where a group of people have signed up to do things, but all you have to do is look at a parish map. That's not what it is. A parish is something much more like what they do in Louisiana, where parish is almost synonymous with county, because it is the public altar of worship for those people in that place.
Well, and I want to avoid sort of this golden age narrative, but I do think in today's day and age we have to be more intentional about this. In class, you and I have talked about that book by Robert Putnam, Bowling Alone, and the fact of the matter is, like our parents and grandparents, especially our grandparents, I think had a thicker culture around this idea of like mediating institutions. So there were all sorts of ways where your life was organized around these different communities that you were part of, not only church, but bowling clubs, that's Putnam's example, like lodges or different places where people would gather to commune. And we've that's just disintegrated. So, and it's convenient to kind of, I'm not dishing on these things because I actually utilize both of them, but to like stay home and order Grubhub and watch Netflix, right? And so, I think one way like the Catholic Church can serve as a sort of countercultural influence today is just returning social life back to ways where we're actually interacting with flesh and blood human beings.
Right, and at the same time, it's sort of like this paradox that, you'll get this idea that like, oh, well, you should only have masses if like a certain amount of people come, or how do we get people to come? How do we get people to come back? Which is all true, right?
Yeah.
Like we need to figure out like that because it's good for their souls. But the exact idea that like if, you know, Father PJ down at Christ the King went in and like literally there were no one in the pews, him celebrating that on Sunday is still a mass for the public and for his parish, which is more than just the building. And so it's funny that like how this sometimes will work out. It might not be just a matter of like, do you have like a certain amount of people all meeting together, but there's this idea that we do things on the behest of people who don't even ask for it. And this obviously when it gets into things like mass, saying mass for people who would never consider themselves a part of the parish just because they live in a boundary. But you think about why we pay taxes and like, you know, do I want like this specific individual road that's like in this part of Polk County? Maybe not, but as like a member of the public, I have a common interest that like our taxes go to providing the sort of infrastructure that makes that world possible.
Yeah, and that's what's kind of paradoxical about church communities. Like sometimes the harder you try at this, the sort of like less natural that it is. So the contrast that I actually have in mind, Bo, is with the communities that I kind of grew up in. It was like community, and that almost preceded, like, it was like the people gathering was sort of like the important part, and then the worship, I'm saying, it was essential, but it's like, without the community, it was like something was missing at church. And I think in the Catholic Church, like you were saying, celebrating a Mass for the good of the community without anyone necessarily present, I would point to something like the tradition of Ad Orientem, where the priest faces the altar and faces the crucifix with the people. It's like our lives are going to be organized in some way, and so what are they to be organized around? And of course, they're organized around the Eucharist. And so, like, when we come to church, that's what provides, like, we, in some sense, don't have to try. We just have to actually worship well.
Yes.
And I think that's sort of the lifeblood of good community.
And I think that gets down to the public in it as a concept is like a comportment, a stance, an orientation, a way in which we are all facing, as it were, a similar direction.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what we see. Even something like the State Fair, like for all of its like how it's a modern incantation of things, that it does get back in some ways to that older tradition. Well, this is the Uncommon Good, Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr. Like, make sure to go visit Iowa Catholic Radio online, www.iowacatholicradio.com, where you can listen live and donate. Facebook, Twitter, download the Iowa Catholic Radio app. All ways that you can be a part of Iowa Catholic Radio, listen and donate. This is the Uncommon Good, and we'll be back right after this.
Thank you, Golden Rule Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, for sponsoring my show. John Lee and Eddie in the morning on Iowa Catholic Radio. Golden Rule, servicing Des Moines for over 15 years. They obey the rules to live by, especially the Golden Rule. Online at goldenrulephc.com.
Thank you, Dental Associates, for supporting Dowling Catholic Sports 365. Dental Associates, addressing your smile, needs, and dreams. 515-225-6742. Online at Des Moines-DentalAssociates.com.
Thank you, Big Red Q Quick Print, for underwriting the sports report. Family owned and operated since 1980, Big Red Q Quick Print is a full-service print shop, ready to help you with all your printing needs with speed and accuracy. BigRedQ-DesMoines.com.
Check out the latest issue of the Catholic Mirror hitting mailboxes this weekend. Read about St. Pius X and Dowling alum Carissa Schweitzer's performance at the Tokyo Olympics. Read what her parents had to say about her long journey and local reaction. You'll also learn about a retired farmer who donates his blood platelets weekly, driving 50 miles one way every week to help those in need. His story was even featured in the Omaha World Herald. You won't want to miss Bishop Joensen's thought-provoking monthly column. That's in this month's issue of the Catholic Mirror hitting mailboxes this weekend.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio provided by Savage Power.
Would you like to get more involved as a volunteer? Intervisions Healthcare empowers at-risk women facing an unplanned pregnancy to make life-affirming decisions, but our nursing staff can't do it alone. Our Unplanned Pregnancy Clinic seeks dedicated advocates, receptionists, and nursing volunteers to meet the needs of hundreds of at-risk patients we see each year. If you are a people person who wants to help moms with unplanned pregnancies, contact us today at 515-440-2273 or visit ivhcare.org.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio provided by the St. Vincent de Paul Golf Outing to fight food insecurity. Friday, September 17th, Copper Creek Golf Club in Pleasant Hill, 10 a.m. svdpdsm.org. That's svdpdsm.org.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio is provided by Edible Arrangements at 2020 Grand Avenue in West Des Moines, helping people celebrate all kinds of occasions with food arrangements, treats, gifts, and more online at ediblearrangements.com.
Back with the Uncommon Good, Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr joining you this Wednesday. Thank you for listening to the show, broadcasting live from the Iowa State Fair. We really do hope you get a chance to come out and see us. We're under the nice shade provided by the trees over here on the west end of the Bill and what's it? The Bill
and Bill Riley
and Bill Riley stage. Excuse me. And we hope to see you. We got deacons, we got priests, we got a whole setup. It would be wonderful to see you here at the Iowa State Fair. So, Bud, to wrap up the show, talking about the importance of the public. So we go that in the modern world, public and private is often sort of pitched against each other. There's a way sometimes I think Catholics involve themselves as like public versus Catholic, and part of this might be public and private school or something like this. But I think that starts to be another place where we need to make an effort to take back what's something classically we have done well.
Yeah, we've tried to say on the show this morning that like the public understanding it as the commons and like a good that we all participate in. I think it's not only related sometimes to the tension that we feel as Catholics with the world, but even sort of American tradition. So like, our nation is founded on this famous protest of like no taxation without representation. So there's always been a stream in our culture that's like pushing back against like sort of an overreach on the part of the public goods. Mm-hmm. And so like when we use the word public today, we talk about public schools, public parks, et cetera, et cetera. And I think as Catholics, we should feel some impulse to support those things regardless of how much that we participate in them, recognizing that they are goods. Now, like to take a controversial topic like education, sometimes we say like, well, this or that school has gone to pot, so I don't really want to support that. But I mean, there's a famous phrase, the abuse of an office doesn't undo its proper use. And so, like, in some ways we can serve the common good by doing what we can to promote those things, to push them in the right direction, regardless of like the utility that they necessarily have for us at an individual level.
No, that's absolutely the case. And I actually think that public parks is a great way to point out this, is that there's nothing in America currently, I think, more medieval than like state and federal parks. That they're put aside for their own sake and for the beauty of nature and for all of us to enjoy. And I think that the State Fair, it's, like I said, speaks to this idea that there's a way in which we come together and we are more than just the sort of aggregate parts that show up at something like the State Fair.
Like, obviously something like taxation could get out of control, but there is also a sense where we can say, like, I'm going to cling to my own possessions, my own wealth or whatnot. But then with a lot of the things that we've mentioned, like state parks, public schools, or I think of like even the medical infrastructure, which in many ways has been privatized. But we take those things for granted, and when we want to enjoy them or when we need them, we're sort of like angry if they're not there, you know.
Why are they run down? Yeah. And you're like, well, yeah.
All these potholes on the interstate. But that's, like just like anything in life, that comes at a certain cost to us,
No, absolutely. And that cost, I think, is something we've always tried to point out at the show, is that cost can also be sacrifice, but that also means that like it's a sacrifice that we participate in together, can have a more fruitful life and in the church as well, understanding my relationship to the church not just as my individual devotions, but being a part of the body of Christ. Well, Bud, this has been The Uncommon Good. If people are interested, can they be a part of the prayer life? I know we don't have our normal setup, but if you have any that you can throw out to people.
Jimmy, I'm trying to remember. The rosary is at 5:30 a.m.?
5:30 a.m. and 9:30 a.m.
I know the Divine Shop of Mercy is at 3 p.m.
Yeah, around 3 p.m. and the Angelus is around 6, because they actually start just a little bit before.
Okay, thank you, Jimmy, for bailing me out. And I'm now have my liners in front of me.
They heard all that stuff.
Yeah, and Angelus at 6, Divine Mercy Chaplet at 3 p.m., and the rosary in the morning. 5:30 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. Sorry about that.
Oh, no. And then, speaking of liners, so we have twice the people that Iowa Catholic Radio is sponsoring people that are going to be playing at the stage.
We're not sponsoring them, but We the Kingdom will be at the
We the Kingdom
this Sunday.
Yeah, this Sunday. We the Kingdom will be there, and then something else is happening next week.
Well, the Next Man Up is going to be on September 10th.
Next Man Up is going to be September 10th. There's actually a lot going on, and of course,
just go to
IowaCatholicRadio.com for all of the events. You could, like I said, our ministry is not just us stumbling through here at the ending at the Iowa State Fair. It's you guys as well. Your prayers, your volunteer, but also your material donations, of course, make this work. And you can donate IowaCatholicRadio.com, calling 515-223-1150 or texting 515-223-1150. And if you download the Iowa Catholic Radio app, you can listen live, do all that, but also donate there as well.
Come visit us at the fair near the Ann and Bill Riley stage under the shade. We'll give you all the correct prayer times. There's also rosaries, Pope Francis fan that you can take with you, so some neat items.
Yeah, I actually have to say, it's been a wonderful fair because I don't think people have needed the fans as bad as like some other years. It's been a beautiful weather situation for the fair. Jimmy, can you confirm that? It's been absolutely beautiful. And like I said, if you get overheated, it's easy to come over to our table and tents. We're under the shade. We have moving parts behind you. Yeah. So, beautiful pictures of priests. Actually, Monsignor Chido, well represented. These CDs, I'm assuming, are his homilies, but maybe he sings some Frank Sinatra.
And Monsignor Chido's right over here, so you can grab a CD and have him sign it.
That's right.
Under the shade.
That's
near the Ann and Bill Riley booth.
That's it's just like
I think
fame
that's
upon
Monsignor
fame.
Chido.
Oh, that's Monsignor Chido. Yeah, now
that profile's unmistakable.
Yeah, we're people watching. We're Monsignor watching. What are all the Monsignors that are around?
This place
Jimmy, you're not a Monsignor. I'm sorry.
I'm not, but there's two of them out here.
Yeah.
3.
So
Well, you should do it where there's a contest, like find the Monsignor, and you can get something for
he's
free.
incognito today, but there's two not incognito today.
That's right. There's 2 fully vested out, 1 who's hiding that can be brought into service. We've got deacons. We got more deacons than you can shake a stick at.
Monsignor Beeson said he's hearing confessions at 11 a.m.
All right.
So
well, okay.
you're on your way down to the fair.
Now we're being told to stop. So this is the Uncommon Good for Bud Marr and everyone here at the Iowa State Fair. We hope to see you. This is the Uncommon Good. May Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace, reign in our hearts, family, city, state fairs, everything. This is the Uncommon Good, and we'll be back next week.
The Uncommon Good with Bo Bonner and Dr. Bud Marr is heard every week on wonderful Catholic stations like this one and anytime on podcast. Just search for The Uncommon Good.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and The Uncommon Good provided by Mercy College of Health Sciences. Learn more at mchs.edu.